Hello and welcome back to At Your Pace Online's Michigan Real Estate Education Series. In this class, we'll be discussing the principal-agent relationship and the law of agency. We'll begin this class with an overview of agency as a general concept. We'll talk about the history of agency and the important elements of this kind of relationship. From there, we'll discuss both the parties involved in an agency relationship and the ways in which agency is established. After that, we'll explore different forms of agency and the types of authority that agents can wield. Then we'll examine the general responsibilities of agents and how agency relationships are ended. From there, we'll look at agency in the real estate industry specifically. Then to close the class, we'll finally look at how the state of Michigan governs agency relationships. Agency is an important and common legal relationship. It's vital to understand agency relationships, especially in regards to real estate transactions. The term agent is a general term with several meanings. However, nearly all the meanings of agent and agency refer to someone who acts on behalf of someone else. For our purposes, agency can be defined as a legal and contractual relationship where one person represents another. Authority is granted to the person representing the other person or group. The person or group granting that authority takes an amount of legal responsibility for the actions of the person through whom they're acting. While the majority of agency relationships are established through written contracts, some are not. The type of contract used can have dramatic ramifications. Agency relationships are subject to state and federal laws. The relationship that's formed when someone becomes an agent is primarily a relationship of trust. This is why agency is referred to as a fiduciary relationship. Agency can take numerous forms. It can be a long-term agreement to handle a number of tasks, or a short-term agreement that ends once a single task has been accomplished. Agency is also commonplace in business. Hiring someone to repaint a house or move a couch are simple examples of agency. In real estate, the agency relationship is formed when someone approaches a real estate broker and asks that person to provide assistance with the purchase, sale, or management of real estate. The agency relationship is one that could be said to have originated the first time someone was unable to accomplish a task on their own and employed someone else to carry out the task for them. Agency has been a key component of trade and commerce for much of human history. Anytime one individual compensates another individual to act on their behalf, they have begun an agency relationship. The oldest laws regarding the duties of an agent come from the Code of Hammurabi, which dates back to around 1770 BC. The code laid out specific rules that had to be followed for merchant agents. When a craftsman made goods that were consumed far away, they would sell them to a merchant. Merchants then traveled near and far selling goods where they were needed. As a merchant's business grew, they would often find themselves unable to physically deliver all of the goods that they could afford to purchase for trade. The merchants hired agents whose job it was to deliver those goods to their intended market and return with a profit. The potential for corruption in this arrangement was vast. So, the government created and enforced rules governing the relationship to ensure that merchants would be able to continue to grow their businesses. Agents were responsible for the cargo they transported, except in the case of robbery, and they were required to return the profits to the merchant upon coming home. During the Crusades, another important component of agency law developed. Soldiers who left to fight in the Crusades often had property. To prevent this property from going fallow or being stolen, they created contracts and entrusted their lands to people who would take care of them while they were away. When the soldiers returned, many found that people holding their lands refused to give them back. Under the common law at that time, ownership of property was determined primarily by an ability to utilize the property. Since the soldiers had given that right to the trustee, they didn't have a legal claim to the land anymore. In England, these soldiers appealed to the King and Lord High Chancellor for a remedy. The Lord Chancellor would, normally, decide that the trustee, the person holding the property, had made an agreement to deliver the property to the settler, the person who owned the property, upon their return. For this reason, the trustee had to return it. The rulings by the Lord Chancellor, which in England became equity law, set down that trustees had a fiduciary duty to the settler and were bound to act in their best interest. By promising to hold the property for the soldier, the trustee had a duty to use the property in the interest of the original owner rather than for their own interest. The rest of this introductory segment will focus on the law of agency and the nature of the agency relationship.